So a couple of weeks ago, I posted the final video in my series ranking every Genesis song. And I mentioned in the introductory video for that series that I wasn't the first person to pursue that particular stupid idea, although to the best of my knowledge, I am the first person on YouTube. And so just as a postscript to that, today I wanted to acknowledge a couple other people who've done the same thing, respond to some of their choices, and kind of review the lists. If you're watching this video, you probably already know, but I am, as always, Hans from Electric Brain, Electric Shadow. We are a contemporary art rock project which tries to make thoughtful, detailed, complex but accessible music. You can check us out on Bandcamp or your favorite streaming service. So the idea of ranking and reviewing every Genesis song has been done a couple of times other than by me. Once by a gentleman on Reddit who started in early 2020, and then once in an article on Ultimate Classic Rock, which was posted a couple months after I did the first of my videos on that topic. And I think Genesis are actually a pretty good band to do this with, right? Because there's a really pretty huge quality gulf between their best and worst material. They have a lot of songs, but not a lot of songs. And there aren't a lot of like generic standard issue Genesis songs, right? For the most part, nearly all their songs feel like kind of a separate idea rather than just a copy and paste of sort of a pre-existing template. And it's really one of the things I think that's most admirable about them. So the first person to do a list was the Reddit user Lord Chozo, who wrote these over the course of 2020 in a Reddit forum. Now, I'll say right off the bat that while I disagree pretty strongly with some of his choices, he discusses the songs in a thoughtful way. He's never a jerk about it. He interpolates a lot of quotes from the band. So clearly he's done some homework. He never dismisses a song without giving it serious consideration. And he's also included songs that appear in demo form on the box sets, which I didn't do, and I really appreciate that commitment. Now, I haven't read the whole thing front to back because at this point, honestly, I could kind of use a break from even saying the word Genesis. But in a year or so, when I've had some time away, I actually think it would be really interesting to sit down and go through this whole thing. And if you like what I've done, then I'm pretty sure you'll find it worth your time. I'm going to link both of these in the description so you can find it there. What I find really interesting about this list is that he seems to have completely disregarded the conventional ideas about what is and isn't a worthwhile Genesis song. With my list, there were definitely some unexpected choices, but overall, you have the Revelations and Calling All Stations stuff at the bottom, along with some of the notorious stinkers, then a big middle full of the lesser prog stuff and the better pop stuff, and then mostly prog-era pieces in the top 40 with a couple of personal favorites thrown in. And this guy, he makes me seem actually heavily orthodox. Just some notably surprising choices. He's put a lot of the B-tier epics down here in the bottom quarter with all the archives demos. So Return of the Giant Hogweed, Battle of Epping Forest, Get 'Em Out by Friday, Robbery, Assault and Battery. All these are in roughly the same caliber as like Image Blown Out and Hair on the Arms and Legs. So that's a surprising choice. And similarly, you've got some Third Side of Lamb stuff that I think is quite brilliant mixed in here with, for instance, Nowhere Else to Turn, which is a Calling All Stations outtake that I've always found to be offensively pedestrian and probably would put in the bottom 10 if I had included it on my list. And then here right in the middle in the 70s to 60s stretch, you have Fret at number 64, which places it above Watcher of the Skies, which in turn is only one place above Sign Your Life Away, also above Back in New York City, Mama, and Turn It On Again. Anything Now ranks even higher. So it seems like this guy likes the Calling All Stations B-sides more than anyone else ever, basically. And I really don't mean any of that in like a snotty or snarky way, actually. Given the pretty clear level of effort and thought that's been put into this, it's really quite fascinating to see such an unusual arrangement. Now, looking at the top 20, it's much more like what you'd expect. I do appreciate seeing Heat Haze up here so high. Nice to know I'm not the only one who adores that song. It's also very nice seeing the Lamia in the top 5. Kind of funny that we both have Fading Lights at number 3. I think that might be the only song on the whole list that ended up in exactly the same spot. But I guess it really does have that third best kind of energy. Now, the other list was done by Ryan Reed at ultimateclassicrock.com. Looks like the posting date here is April 2022, so I'm basically concurrent with my own rollout. Now, this list is a lot more succinct, and it is a little bit more prone to writing things off in a line or two, particularly in the lower ranked songs. It's a much quicker read, it has much less depth. From a formatting standpoint, it's a little bit less enjoyable to read because it's in this crowded page with all this flashing shit. For some reason, there's this awful picture of Avril Lavigne with no context for why it's there, though, that's not Reed's fault. And this list, I'd say, is somewhat more in line with conventional wisdom about song quality. You have all the Revelations and Calling All Stations songs kind of clustered at the bottom. Then some of the weaker, more obscure pop tracks, and some stuff that's generally agreed to be decent. Then the best pop songs, the prog epics. Mostly prog stuff at the top. Just some highlights from browsing here. We've gotten Seven Stones at number 124, so the guy who got mad at me for putting it at number 73 would not have liked this list. A lot of the Lamb stuff is surprisingly far down. Lamia is at 117 here, and they buy into the old chestnut about it not working out of context, which I think I dispatched pretty thoroughly in my review of that song. Harold the Barrel is at number 111, and he says it's about a man contemplating suicide, which technically is true, but leaves out some important stuff. He calls Living Forever inspirational and says it gently strums the heartstrings, which is, just an odd assessment of that song. He does say Silver Rainbow is an often forgotten stunner, and I would definitely agree with that assessment, so kudos there, actually. Appreciate seeing that particular song get a little bit of spotlight. Very interesting that the 1999 remake of Carpet Crawlers is filed separately, and also that it's the 79th best song. Not much to say about that, beyond it being a weird choice. In general, the top 40 or so is a fairly standard run, without anything too surprising. Supper's Ready, of course, is at number 1, and I think he tackles the same theme I did in terms of the way the parts complement the whole. Gets the idea across pretty well in a succinct way, so I did appreciate that. There was definitely effort put in where it counted most. Good writing there. For the 5th, Moonlit Night, Mama, Duchess, I'm fine with these choices. Would basically agree, even if I didn't put them quite in the same spots. Me and Sarah Jane is at number 18, which I definitely appreciate. That was pretty good. He's been a bit kinder to some of the pop material than I was. It's kind of odd to see throwing it all away at number 36. But given the outlet he's publishing in, maybe that's understandable. And he does actually have a couple fairly perceptive points about the instrumentation on it, so might even have changed my perspective on that song a bit, and that's certainly appreciated. So overall, this one is worth a read as well. Probably ultimately kind of lines up with the common sentiment more so than my list did. Both of these, I think, I just wanted to take a minute, to acknowledge other people who've done the same thing that I did, perhaps in a format that was a little bit less of a pain in the ass to do, but, can't blame them for that. Like I said, I'll link both of these in the description, and just wanted to throw this in as a postscript, and hope you have a good week.